the blockage, it has stopped migrating salmon from coming up the river.
Tonight, the river may be blocked, but that hasn't stopped the people who rely on the Chinook salmon to try and give nature a helping hand. This man says he's leading a hunt in the face of a mining project slated to take over his family's land.
We're talking to members of the community. They want some more information and transparency about how police interact with them on the street.
And Edmonton police responds to a community group's Know Your Rights card with a card of their own. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Today in a Quebec courtroom began the first of 13 days of public inquiry hearings examining the circumstances of Joyce Echaquan's death at a hospital in Joliet, Quebec. And as our Lindsay Richardson reports, the call of justice for Joyce is still going strong 8 months after her passing.
Hand in hand with his young son, Carole Dubé walked up to the Trois-Rivières courthouse and right into a throng of waiting reporters.
Je suis comme vous. Je ne sais pas encore ce qu'il nous attend.
Like you, I don't know what awaits us, Dubé told media before the official kickoff of the coroner's inquiry regarding the death of his wife, Joyce Echaquan.
Je me sens prêt. Je me sens confiant. La famille est là, prête. Nos enfants sont ici avec nous, nerveux mais confiants.
8 months ago, Joyce's death ignited an international uproar over systemic racism in healthcare. A Facebook Live video captured racial taunts made by care staff at Joliet Hospital. This incident is now subject of 2 inquiries, a closed-door coroner's investigation and this public commission.
Il est important de souligner que le comportement ou l'attitude réservée à Mme Echaquan par le personnel du Centre hospitalier régional de Lanaudière lors de son dernier séjour à cet endroit font nécessairement partie intégrante des circonstances de son décès.
In her opening address, the lead coroner on the case promised answers for the family. In turn, the Echaquan family's lawyer had a message for the government.
I hope that they pay close attention to what happens. I think there will be a lot of evidence that will come out that should give birth to political will to really affect actual change instead of putting whatever report comes out of this on a shelf and moving on.
Quebec insists it won't. Indigenous Affairs Minister Yann Lafrenière wrote on Facebook, "Of course we will wait to see the recommendations that will be made at the end of the investigation, which will be added to the more than 500 recommendations made by the various reports guiding my I Hope plan." Premier François Legault did not issue a comment on today's Echaquan Commission. He was busy at a press conference about French language laws.
It's about protecting something that will always be vulnerable, which is our language in Quebec.
But perhaps more vulnerable are the First Nations and Inuit who fear confrontation and discrimination when seeking health care. Something Atikamekw Nation Grand Chief Constant Awashish takes seriously.
Since I have little kids, since I have daughters, I think it's important for me that things change. I don't want them to be. I don't want to be worried personally. I don't want them to be scared to get the public services. I want them to feel free to be what they are as First Nation, to be comfortable using their culture, their language. I want them to live in their full potential and contribute in the full potential to the society.
The public inquiry hearings will continue into early June, and while the coroner can't rule on liability, she can issue recommendations and identify the factors that contributed to Joyce's death last September. There are laws preventing us from broadcasting courtroom testimony, but stay tuned. We'll have an update on what was said and by whom coming up tomorrow. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Trois-Rivières, Quebec.
To Saskatchewan now, where a veteran Prince Albert RCMP officer has been charged with first-degree murder in the death of a young man. Police say the killing took place while the officer was off duty APTN's Priscilla Wolf has the story.
Prince Albert police are investigating the death of 26-year-old Braden Herman. Bernie Herman, who has been an RCMP officer for 32 years, was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder on May 12th. The Prince Albert police said police were called to a wooded area on May 11th within the city for a report of a deceased male. The death is being investigated as a homicide, and the arrested RCMP officer was not on duty at the time of the incident, according to police. Braden Herman's body was scheduled for an autopsy today in Saskatoon. Brett Herman is Braden's older brother and says that both Braden and Bernie are from the Clearwater River Dene Nation, but are not related to each other, even though they have the same last name. Brett told APTN that Bernie and Braden knew each other, but he's not sure of what their relationship was. He said when Braden was living with him last year, that Bernie would drive by often and once even showed up at their home.
He came here unannounced, knocking on the door, asking for Braden. And I told him that he was sleeping. I woke him up. Braden answered the door and they had exchanged a few words. I don't know what was said. But before that, Bernie was making his presence known around my house, around my street. He would drive by my house and like he was harassing my brother in a way.
Brett says Braden never made a complaint about the harassment, but he believes that Braden was gathering evidence.
I tried to get him to open up to me, but my brother was documenting things, I'm pretty sure, on his cell phone, pictures, videos, etc., text messages between the two.
Brett spoke to the Prince Albert police to try get facts.
The cops, the investigation is still ongoing, I believe. And they're very limited to what they can tell me. But they just told me that my brother's body was taken care of, that they have a fugitive in custody, and he is, was an active member.
The Prince Albert police have requested an independent observer to help oversee the investigation. The Saskatchewan RCMP Media Relations sent this statement to APTN. The officer is a corporal with 32 years service, and the RCMP has processes in place to handle conduct issues, including those as serious as the arrest. Bernie Herman was scheduled to make his first appearance this morning, but that has been put over until May 26th. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Despite mounting public pressure for 2 Yukon MLAs to resign after sending inappropriate text messages, their political party says they'll receive sensitivity training and keep their positions. APTN's Sarah Connors explains.
It's been 2 weeks since Yukon Party MLA Stacey Hazard and Wade Ishenko texted sexually crude remarks about Liberal leader Sandy Silver and DP leader Kate White and their own leader Curry Dixon. Dixon has since banned the 2 MLAs from sitting on any legislative committees or from serving as critics for the party's shadow cabinet. Several Yukon First Nations groups have also called for their resignation. Now, Dixon has announced the 2 MLAs will be enrolled in workplace bullying and harassment prevention training, and he will be directing the Yukon Party to establish a respectful workplace policy that will apply to all MLAs, staff, and volunteers. There's also been no indication from Dixon that more severe punishments, like removing Hazard and Ishenko from caucus, will be taking place. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Time to step aside for a quick break now, but stick around. There's much more to come. Welcome back. It's been a little over a year since the Grand Alliance Agreement was reached between the Cree Nation government and Quebec. Overall, this agreement promised to bring job opportunities to a large portion of the James Bay Cree population. But as mining projects begin to take root on their territory, community members are wondering whether economic development has a hidden cost. This is a story by Shushan Bakong, read by Lindsay Richardson.
All those information.
This is Ernie Moses, a Cree trapper from East Main. He's expressing concerns during a virtual consultation held by Impact Canada, an environmental assessment agency. He's just learned he won't be able to hunt moose on this part of his territory for the next 30 years because of a proposed mining project. An open-pit mining project is set to break ground on the territory occupied by Moses and his ancestors before him.
Mais c'est sûr que principalement pour M. Moses, il va avoir, pour la durée de la vie de la mine, il va avoir une place où il pourrait plus poursuivre sa vie traditionnelle.
The Rose Lithium Tantal mining project is currently being studied by both the provincial and federal governments. In Quebec, the Cree communities of East Main, Nemaska, Waskaganish, and Waswanipi were consulted virtually in mid-April. Pakeso Mukash was the Cree translator during these consultations, and he questions their legitimacy, explaining that the Cree Nation was busy preparing for their annual goose break hunt at the time.
Si on fait une affaire virtuelle puis il y a 10 personnes, est-ce qu'on peut vraiment dire qu'on a consulté le peuple? Fait que c'était une des questions. Puis même, il y a du monde qui ont demandé. C'est quoi le numéro magique? Quand est-ce que le fédéral et le provincial peuvent dire qu'ils ont consulté le peuple quand il y avait une douzaine de personnes?
Mukash says some Cree are upset by the prospect of mining development and are dissatisfied by the Grande Alliance agreement with Quebec.
Ça va nous permettre aussi de mettre en valeur l'énorme potentiel minier du nord du Québec, tout en préservant l'environnement.
Signed in 2020, the $4.7 billion Grande Alliance agreement is meant to improve mining infrastructure on Cree territory. It's currently in the first phase of feasibility studies.
Qu'est-ce que j'ai entendu ça m'a tellement blessé, c'est que les trappeurs sont en train de perdre d'espoir. Il dit carrément, il n'y a personne qui nous écoute, il n'y a personne qui nous représente. On se fait maltraiter, puis on laisse ça aller.
Jean-Paul Murdoch, negotiator for the Cree Nation government, believes each project will give the population the chance to get involved to express concerns.
C'est sûr qu'il faut regarder tout le coffre d'outils pour protéger l'environnement. Il y a des lois puis des règlements du gouvernement de Québec qu'on utilise. Il y a même des lois puis des règlements du gouvernement fédéral. C'est pour ça aujourd'hui que ce projet-là passe au travers deux processus d'évaluation, fédéral et provincial.
Murdoch says public consultations with the province are over, but until mid-June, community members can submit online letters with their concerns or objections. The assessment agency, Impact Canada, will submit its report in a few months. But how much time trapper Ernie Moses has left to enjoy his ancestral hunting grounds remains unclear. A story by Shushan Bakong, APTN National News, Wendoge, Quebec.
We recently told you about a statement to police card being offered by the Native Counseling Services of Alberta. The card tells you the rights you have if you encounter police. Now the Edmonton Police Service have released their own card. APTN's Chris Stewart explains.
Edmonton residents now have a new option to find out their rights if they have an encounter with an Edmonton police officer. The Edmonton Police Service began a Know Your Rights campaign with a pocket brochure and a wallet-sized card. The idea is to inform the public of what they can and cannot do while interacting with the police. Inspector Mitchell Flauman says they are listening to what the public wants.
Certain members of the community want to understand more what the roles and responsibilities that police have during these interactions. So that's from our Commitment to Action outreach. When we're talking to members of the community, they want some more information and transparency about how police interact with them on the street.
The wallet card has a QR code that directs you to the Edmonton Police Service page, which lists the rights you have. Rights like saying no to a search unless you are under arrest or are being detained.
So the obligations of the officer and the person that's being spoken with change based on the circumstances. So whether it's just an officer approaching somebody on the street to have a conversation when they're under no obligation to provide any information to that officer, versus a person who's under arrest, which then they are required to provide certain pieces of information. So that would change depending on the circumstances.
The card is similar to the one offered by the Native Counseling Services of Alberta. That card has a statement that you read to police officers, informing them of your rights. They told APTN that they support the new card by the Edmonton Police.
Just as the Know Your Rights campaign works to inform the community, it also works to support positive relationships between Edmonton police officers and members of the public, with hopes that it will create transparency, encourage respectful and open dialogue between officers and the communities they serve, and build relationships with individuals who may perceive barriers when interacting with police.
The cards and pocket brochures are available now at the 6 EPS Division locations across Edmonton. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Not sure somebody's going to check a QR code when they're getting arrested. Still to come, we'll take a look at a new campaign to help people get vaccinated and see what's coming up tonight on Nation to Nation. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for a look at our photo of the day. And if you look up peaceful in the dictionary, you might see this. Our viewer, Jared Tom, sent us this idyllic scene from the Ojibways of Anugami First Nation. Beautiful. Keep those photos coming by sending your photo to share at aptn.ca. Tune in to watch if your photo is our next photo of the day. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 10 with showers in St. John's, 16 in Halifax, -2 in Inukjuak, +6 for Kuujjuaq. 22 with showers in Montreal, 18 in Chibougamau. 20 with rain for Sault Ste. Marie, sunny and 20 in North Bay. 20 with showers for Thunder Bay, rain, and 17 in Sioux Lookout. -8 in Churchill, 13 with showers in God's Lake, 21 and rain in Winnipeg, rain, and 22 for Brandon. Sunny and 23 for Regina, 22 for Saskatoon and North Battleford, 3 in Uranium City, 19 for Meadow Lake. Over in northern Alberta, 8 in Fort Chip, 18 for Fort McMurray. 20 with showers in Edmonton, 22 in Medicine Hat. Sunny and 18 for Vancouver, 1 degree warmer and sunny in Victoria. 9 with rain in Dease Lake, showers, and 18 for Prince George. 7 in Old Crow, 11 with rain for Whitehorse. -1 with snow in Yellowknife, 11 in Norman Wells. -5 in Sax Harbor, 1 below in Polituck. -11 in Chesterfield and Arviette, 10 below in Baker Lake. -10 for Resolute, -12 with snow in Johaben. In BC, First Nations and Fisheries and Oceans Canada have partnered to release over 100,000 Chinook salmon into the Fraser River. It's part of the Big Bar Landslide Emergency Response Program, which is an effort to restore low salmon stocks. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
At the end of April, Nazco First Nation held a blessing ceremony releasing 13,000 Chinook salmon near Quesnel, BC, about a 4-hour drive from the Big Bar landslide site. In 2019, that landslide blocked the Fraser River, BC's largest river system and a major salmon migration route. They are hopeful that these salmon can find their way back to their natural spawning grounds. Nazco Chief Leah Stump says they were joined by neighboring First Nations communities to watch the release.
A lot of the communities up and down the river, not only Nazco, have relied on the salmon for their necessity, for their food for the winter, and with the blockage, it has stopped the migrating salmon from coming up the river.
They are one of many nations along the Fraser River that partnered with DFO to release nearly 100,000 Chinook in 12 Upper Fraser watersheds through April and May. According to DFO, these releases are over a year in the making. Planning for these releases began in 2020, including the collaboration with First Nation technical experts in the Upper Fraser Fisheries Conservation Alliance, and DFO. First Nations partners are an integral part of the success of the enhancement program. Chief Stump said there hasn't been many salmon coming to these rivers. Nazco members have turned to trout fishing, but they are missing out on passing down traditional harvesting knowledge to the younger generations. They are hopeful that this Chinook release will help salmon migration.
We're just hopeful that the salmon will make it back to the ocean and then back up to the spawning grounds.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
This week's episode of APTN Investigates was scheduled for broadcast last Friday, but had to be rescheduled. APTN Investigates reporter John Murray will join us here tomorrow to explain why, but for now, here's a look at For Trust or Profit, Part 1.
Every time I go back to my community, it saddens me. All you see is gangs, drugs, alcohol. It's broken every family. Like I feel like, wow, where did the families go? Where did the traditions go? Where did Ministiquin go?
Lisa Crookedneck is from the Ministiquin Lake Cree Nation. On a tour of the community, we noticed rough roads. We could see boarded up windows and doors.
This is what we've been seeing for the last 18 years.
Ministiquin Lake Cree Nation uses the Indian Act election rules, which means chief and council serve 2-year terms. Rachel Snow says that presents a challenge for First Nations governments.
Voting every 2 years, you could have a whole new council in a 2-year process, so that doesn't lend itself to continuity or stability.
And Indigenous Services Canada is the only place to appeal these elections. There's no independent body or office to investigate complaints.
It's part of Indian Affairs' master plan to either assimilate or terminate First Nation people, so they really don't care that there is no solution.
For Trust or Profit Part 1 airs tomorrow night right after the APTN National News. And a reminder, John Murray will be here tomorrow to speak more about it. Now let's head to Ottawa to see what Todd's got coming up tonight on Nation to Nation.
Coming up in a matter of moments, I talked to an Ontario chief and Green Member of Parliament about glyphosate. What is it? It's the most popular herbicide used in Canada. And although there is some evidence it's linked to cancer, Health Canada says it's safe to use. Chief Dean Sayers doesn't want it sprayed near his community anymore. And MP Jenica Atwin recently tabled a private member's bill to ban its use. I also speak to the leader of the Green Party over Enbridge's Line 5. That pipeline brings crude oil from Western Canada to Sarnia, Ontario, where a significant percentage of petroleum products for Central Canada are manufactured. Annie Paul will weigh in on a dispute that is currently pitting the Governor of Michigan against Enbridge and Ottawa. I'll see you in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Todd. Looks good. You can catch that episode right away. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.